I am finally done with the shelving. You'd be amazed how much effort they were. But I can use my lightbox again, and you know what that means. It's time to do the next siege requests I got. Technically, the request was mostly just for Ironhide, but they are the same mold, and if I don't cover Ratchet this time, I'm never going to. Besides, he got a bunch of requests along with the Ironhide. Also, I don't have the crosshairs because that thing is ugly and dumb, and I hate it. And for the question of the video, what siege figure do you want to see get reviewed next? It's Siege, Ironhide, and Ratchet. This is one of the first molds out of the whole WFC, and it managed to set the tone for both Siege and the line in general in some weird ways. From the moment I saw the promotional images, I knew that I loved this as a reinterpretation of Ironhide, except for the odd bent windshield that kind of serves no purpose. I think it's supposed to make him look dumpy, but like, seriously, all it does is look bad. Like, it doesn't look like anything, it just looks wrong. But good news, it's a fully optional step that you have to go out of your way to do. So, you know, crisis averted. Otherwise, this is such a good redesign for Ironhide. They've taken that man made out of boxes aesthetic and turned it up to 11, making him one of the squarest boys in the Transformers period. Siege was a very square-centric toy line, and I'm here for it. Right angles superior. One thing you might notice that's off about mine is the leg panels, as they stick kind of away from the sides of the shins, unlike Ratchet's. And they have these metal pins in them, which this figure doesn't normally have. And that's because of probably the core flaw with all of Siege, in that for some reason, they kept designing the pegs wrong, and not in the same ways that later installments of the War for Cybertron did. You see, Siege had a problem with sizing. Pegs that were never supposed to come out of their ports were almost universally too big to fit in them on the first toolings of everything, with Starscream and Ironhide having the absolute worst of it here. Starscream's chest would constantly pop off anytime you tried to transform it, so I just drilled that sucker out and pinned it with some copper wire. And Ironhide was the king of crappy connections, because I'm fairly sure that you could shake that figure too hard and his leg panels would pop off. It was virtually impossible to handle that thing at all and have the leg panels remain on. A problem I got so fed up with, I drilled out the connections and used nails I sawed off to pin them in place. There was probably a much easier fix for my problem, but I was completely and utterly done with that little issue. The unfortunate result of my perhaps overzealous actions is that his shin panels no longer sit flush. Fortunately, the Ratchet had their tolerance issues fixed before release, so his leg panels hold strong and I didn't need to put a nail through them, resulting in a much cleaner shin look for him. I also cut off these tabs because they made the legs too hard to open and close, which was a feature left off of later releases of the figure, so I feel vindicated in those actions. Outside of that, the sad fact of the matter is that these two probably have the worst battle damage of the whole of Siege, which is really only muddy boots. It's honestly kind of shocking how little it spreads. The good news is that it makes it very ignorable. It would make sense that Ratchet would have so little considering the figure already had a ton of paint, but the funny thing is that he manages to have the most of the two, whereas Ironhide, the less overall painted figure, got the least of the battle damage. I guess so his gun could get it? I can't say that battle-damaged gun is the first thing that would spring to my mind if I were the person designing this figure, but good news, if you hate the gimmick, it is a separate piece that you can completely forget about. It's amazing just how different these two feel considering how they're just retools of each other. Not even heavy ones, the only things different here are the head, shoulders, paint, and the goiter hump. But the result is that these two figures, while in essence the same, have entirely different feels, not seeming like just the same thing twice. Hell, the foggy blue versus clear white windshields makes a huge difference, causing Ratchet to feel more barrel-chested, whereas Ironhide seems concave. Both are very cool aesthetics, and the surface detailing here strikes a nice balance between everything being greebled and smooth panels. One thing that really distinguishes the two is how Ironhide has these breakup points where his colors shift dramatically. The shoulders, crotch, fists, and back accents make him into a guy comprised of clearly distinct segments, whereas Ratchet's unified color scheme makes him look like one cohesive whole. So yeah, this doesn't really feel like an instance of the exact same thing but two different figures despite them being the same. I think that the feet may be a little big and the shoulders are bracketed kind of far off the body, but on Ratchet that's almost a feature. Their backs are a little hollow, but I've never been one to really complain too much about that, and I'm sure there are upgrade kits to fix that, so I don't pay it much mind. Otherwise, I've got nothing to really complain about with the general look of these robot modes. Heads are a slightly different story though. While I have always liked this Ironhide head, as it does capture the character quite well, to the point where you kind of have to question how it's possible that the show somehow came to the conclusion that he was like the kid of the group. Seriously, had the showrunners ever seen G1 or their own character model before they cast him? But I find that there is an extreme case of beanhead going on with this. Oh my god, why is his forehead so tall? It could have been half this length and it would have only looked better. It's seriously only one problem, but it does so much to compromise the look. Whereas the Ratchet looks for the most part fantastic, but this actually has the younger looking face, so it's hilarious that in the show he was the grizzled, older sounding character. I almost wonder if they accidentally flipped the voices they were going to do. Also strange that they gave the Walgreens exclusive figure the vastly more prominent role. One thing I find interesting about this head is that rather than paint the face the glossy silver most Siege figures got, they used a flatter gray. I wonder if it's because the white he's mostly comprised of was clashing with the normal color they used, but it does give the head a different feel, as does the forehead crest. So yeah, the sculpts of these two are great, but so are the accessories. Ironhide only comes with one, but it's one of the best of the whole of War for Cybertron. As I think Ironhide doesn't really have an iconic gun like many other characters, he got this multi-missile rocket launcher thing that's already one of the most badass weapons of any figure to ever come out, but it also turns into an exploding hammer like something out of a video game, and it's so damn awesome. I find that the grips on it are a little hard to use though, as they are just never adequately placed to get it looking quite right. Ratchet, on the other hand, comes with 3 awesome accessories. This needle gun, which probably looks the best of any of the needle guns to come out of Siege. This wrench, perfect, I love it, more figures need to come with non-combat accessories. And this box on a hinge, which you can use for all sorts of stuff. For starters, it just looks like one of those x-rays your dentist uses, so you can imagine it just being a piece of medical equipment, but you can also combine it with the other 2 accessories. With the needle gun, it becomes Ironhide's super laser he keeps in his trunk that can cut like a 50-foot deep trench instantly. Seriously, this might be the most powerful weapon ever shown to be used by the Autobots. Or you can put the wrench in it and it looks like some kind of electro gun or new medical implement. So it's fair to say that both of these have awesome accessories, and while it's hard for me to say this as the rocket hammer is just about the coolest thing ever, I have to come down on the side of Ratchet having the even better accessories, but both are awesome. Posability on these 2 is almost the exact same except for in one instance, so that's the only thing I will cover twice between the 2. Ironhide's head is designed in such a way that it only swivels, but you can use the transformation joint to get some downwards range on it. Ratchet's head actually has some natural up and down at the neck, so you don't need to resort to cheating for that, but you can if you want even more range. Shoulders pull a good bit more than a 90, but you can untab the backpack to get them straight up, very slightly more than 90 elbows, wrist swivel, completely unimpeded hips with slightly more range than that usually entails, normal 90 knees, and a serious ankle pivot. So these guys are far from a masterclass in posing like a lot from Siege was, but they are at least good at it. They have no specialty joints, and the ranges on some of their key joints don't impress, but they aren't bad at anything, so that is at least nice. Transformation is a simple but fun and interesting affair, with Ironhide once again being the worst of the 2, with a simple issue being caused by the shape of his head. Weirdly, seemingly only on mine, cause I've seen videos by other people who clearly don't have this problem. But on mine, the mohawk on Ironhide's head causes it to sit too proud, keeping me from closing his windshield all the way. I have to turn it on its side to get it to look right, which leaves his face visible through the clear windshield. So yet another way the head being ugly makes the figure worse. The Ratchet, on the other hand, does not suffer that issue, or any clearance issues that my nail fix has caused, so he is overall the smoother and more enjoyable experience, not marred by any particular difficulties. And the end result is pretty cool, but flawed, though it is less egregious in person. Originally, I didn't know from the promo shots how to feel about Ironhide being so square. I've come to really like it, but the shoulders and arms being such clear, undisguised, separate parts is a pube in my pudding. It's just so egregious. They needed something to cover this part at least. While I do prefer the bumper on Ironhide being so aggressive and angular, looking like it has cannons built in, this once again does mean that the Ratchet is the best one, as his shoulders at least do a convincing job of turning into an emergency vehicle light bar at the top thanks to their retooling and paint, meaning that the section that looks out of place is smaller and the unified white without the gold strip underlining it fails to highlight the separation between the arms and the body of the vehicle, meaning it blends infinitely better. The backs of both vehicle modes are kind of incredibly lazy, terminating in feet, but at least it's like 100 times less out of place than on the Earthrise one. If I can cease my griping about the flaws with the vehicle mode for a moment, I can say that they do look like pretty sick cyberpunk vans, and that they once again managed to look almost completely different despite being the same mold. Ratchet even has these extra bonus details up here to give him the impression that his roof is strapped with tools, allowing him to have this unique asymmetrical aesthetic that's rare on an alt mode. I, however, am not going to show you the repair bay mode he has, as that is easily the most fan mode of the fan modes. But overall, these 2 are incredibly fun figures that really embody the innovations and creativity of Siege. Too bad one of them was a near impossible to obtain store exclusive, but they are cool redesigns with fun transformations, a plethora of paint, and posability that at its very worst is standard, and only when compared to the modern expectations of posability. These are great figures anyone would be proud to have, though one of them is absolutely better than the other. And that's not half what I have to say, but it's enough what I have to say. And I know you know what everyone else tells you to do at the end of these videos. So, if you liked what you saw here, please do that. And if you'd like to take it a step further, then please share this video with any friend you think may be interested. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me waste your time.